What do you say to people when someone dies? When you receive a present you don't like? Or when you need to talk to strangers and tell them that their children are bothering you? You'll learn what to say in some embarrassing situations in this episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello and welcome. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching English between us, we're going to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. If you're a new listener, you're very welcome to the podcast. Hi, Reza.
Hi, Craig. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm enjoying the weather in Valencia and very happy to be podcasting in 2020.
Yes, 2020, a new decade. Here we are. Wow.
Exciting. Let's begin this new year with an audio message from our friend Abdesalem from Algeria.
Hi Reza, hi Craig, I'm Abdesalem from Algeria. I'm a teacher of mathematics. I would like to say thank you for your podcast. I listen to your podcast every day at home, when I do some gardening, when I drive to work, when I get to bed, and I would like to say you are the best podcaster in the world. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Abdul Salam, for your lovely message. It's really good to hear from you. And we're really happy that you're multitasking with the podcast. That's what we would like you to do, to make the best use of your time to improve your English. So Abdul Salam is listening while he's gardening, driving to work, when he's in bed. And that's a fantastic idea.
Yes, thank you very much for your positive feedback, Abdesalam.
We'd also like to hear what your listening habits are. When do you listen to us? Do you listen on the bus, when you're walking the dog? Why don't you send us a voice message and we'll give you the information about how to do that at the end of the podcast.
Craig, I think we have a second audio message, do we?
That's right. We've got a message here from David Maya.
Hey, Reason Craig. Let me tell you that send you a message in 90 seconds is very difficult for a Spanish-speaking person, but I'm going to try. I want to let you know, guys, that your program is great, that you are doing an excellent job, that we are here, that we are listening to you guys every day, and you have to keep doing it. And the final thing is I want to share to you guys about a couple topics that you can use in some of your episodes. Maybe one is when you want to say condolence when somebody died. Other topic is about those situations that are a little uncomfortable. For example, when you're surrounded by kids that are very annoying and you don't want their parents to feel bad, or when you're sick or somebody's sick and you don't know. I don't know if there are some expressions or idioms that we can use. Finally, if you do an episode about sports and all those things and stuff that you can find in a gym, it will be great. Thank you and bye.
Thank you very much, David, for your lovely message.
Thanks a lot, David. That was a very clear message. I understood everything you said. But can I just point out one tiny little thing you could improve? You said to say condolence. And the two things there. First, the pronunciation of condolence. It's the second syllable which is stressed, condolence. And we don't use say. We say to pass on or to express.
To offer.
To offer condolence, not say. So one of those verbs, pass on, offer, express condolence. Apart from that, it was perfect.
Yes, it was. And we really liked your idea of awkward situations. In fact, we have spoken before about vocabulary connected to extreme sports and the gym. So we've already covered those topics. If you go to inglespodcast.com/75, episode 75 speaks about vocabulary in the gymnasium, in the gym. And extreme sports was 109. So again, inglespodcast.com/109 for extreme sports. We've spoken about health as well, haven't we?
Yeah, David, you said to talk about being sick or talking about other people being sick. In fact, we did talk about health on doctors in episode 42 and episode 107. So if you have a look at inglespodcast.com/42 or /107, you'll get some vocabulary and expressions related to being sick in those episodes.
Yeah, but it is quite uncomfortable, even for a native speaker, when somebody dies and you have to, as Reza said before, express your condolences or offer condolences to people. And unfortunately, what I found, the older you get, the more you'll need these expressions when people pass away. To pass away, the phrasal verb means to die. It's a nicer way of saying to die, to pass away. We did speak about death back in episode 221. So for more on death, go to inglespodcast.com/221. So Reza, what expressions are useful for listeners when they need to express condolences?
Well, a very common one these days, perhaps the most common one I think, is I'm sorry for your loss. I like that one because you've done what you've had to do, say you're sorry, but it's not like too touchy-feely.
Too emotional.
Yeah. Touchy-feely is like very, very emotional. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is terrible. You can't imagine how I feel. Because you might not know the person that well. And you don't want to perhaps exaggerate if you didn't know them that well. So it's just nice to say, if somebody says, oh, yes, my cousin died the other day, and you don't know their cousin at all, you just say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, and it's also important to say it in the right tone. So you want to have a very somber, very serious tone that's coming from your heart. So obviously you will feel bad for the person. Just let them know you're feeling bad. I'm really, really sorry for your loss.
Or you could name the person. You could say, I'm really sorry about your mom, your dad, your friend, your cousin, your husband, your wife. Name who the person were. Or you could say their name. I'm really sorry about Peter. I'm really sorry about Sandra. Whatever.
And it's good to offer support to the person with an expression like, we're here for you if you need anything, which is a conditional sentence. You can change the order of the phrases. If you need anything, I just want you to know that we're here for you. We're here for you.
Yes, although, as I was saying earlier, you don't want to be too touchy-feely when it's not appropriate. So you would only really use that one with somebody you know a bit. You wouldn't say to somebody that you don't really know, we're here for you, because if they weren't really a good friend before, they're not suddenly a good friend now that somebody has died. It sounds a bit false. So just reserve that for people that you know a bit.
But if you do know the person well, you could say another conditional sentence. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. If there's anything I can do, please let me know.
Another nice thing you can say is he or she will be greatly missed. He will be greatly missed. She will be greatly missed. Or use their name. Ryan will be greatly missed, for example.
And another more formal expression, maybe in writing, or if you don't know the person very well, or maybe if it's your boss, or there's a very formal reason for giving this formal expression, you could say, our deepest condolences, there's that word again, condolence, our deepest condolences on the death of your mother, or on the death of your mother-in-law. So that's a more formal expression. Remember, all of these expressions you can see in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/293.
And that last one that Craig mentioned might be a good one if you actually want to write. To express your condolences, our deepest condolences on the death of your mother-in-law, for example, because I'm not sure about your country, but in the United Kingdom and Ireland, it is still typical to send a card to people.
A sympathy card.
Sympathy card
Yeah.
when somebody dies. And the typical kind of thing you write is our deepest condolences on the death of your... And what's more, depending on the person who receives it and how traditional they are, you have to send a reply to the sympathy card as a thank you for the sympathy card.
And then do you send a card to say thank you for the thank you card?
No, you don't, it doesn't go that far. But you know what? There are actually cards pre-printed and made that exist for this. Not only sympathy, but there are specifically thank you for your sympathy cards in the UK. They're sold in shops. I know because a few years ago I had to buy a few. They do exist. That is how much the British and Irish love cards.
Yeah, my family get very annoyed if I forget to send a birthday card or an anniversary card. Speaking of happier occasions like birthdays and occasions when you receive presents, it's possible that occasionally you get a present that you don't really like, or even a present that you hate. Well, what do you say when someone gives you a horrible present? Does that happen to you, Reza?
Yes, well, basically I can answer that very swiftly. I think for most British people the answer is answer exactly the same as you would for a present you do like.
But you have to be a good actor sometimes.
Be a good actor, but just say exactly the same thing. So, yes, you won't ever really know with a British person if they've liked the present or not, because they're probably going to say much the same thing whether they like it or not, to be honest.
Although there are some expressions you could use if you do not want to lie. Because if you don't think it's a wonderful present, you're not going to say, oh, what a wonderful present. For example, you could say thank you. That's really nice of you. And it is nice of someone who gives you a present. So to say that's really nice of you or that's really kind of you is actually telling the truth, even though you don't like the present.
Yeah, and you won't get into trouble later if, in a couple of weeks you've thrown out the present because you didn't say you liked it. All you said it was that it's kind of them to give it to you.
Or you could say, oh, you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have. You should not have. Which really, if the present is bad, you're telling the truth. You should not have bought me this horrible thing. But if you say it with enthusiasm, oh, you shouldn't have. You shouldn't have gone to so much trouble. Then you're being truthful, but it's kind of received as a compliment.
Or something similar, but in different words, is that really wasn't necessary. Oh, well, it's something similar, like, oh, what a lot of trouble, etc. Oh, that really wasn't necessary.
Or another very neutral way of thanking someone, I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, if it's horrible, then maybe you haven't. Oh, I've never seen anything like this plastic gondola before.
A really good one to avoid any even slight insinuation of lying is to say, I really wasn't expecting anything, which is the truth. You weren't. So even though the present might be absolute rubbish, well, it's not false to say you weren't expecting it. I really wasn't expecting anything.
In fact, today you bought me a very nice jar of oranges in syrup, which was a very nice gift, and I really wasn't expecting anything, so that was a very nice surprise.
But I think I came off better. We had an exchange, and because it was my birthday recently, Craig bought me a bottle of malt whiskey, so I think I may have got the upper hand there, and I really wasn't expecting it.
You're too kind. That's another expression you could use. Oh, you're too kind. That's very similar to the first one. That's really kind of you. Oh, you're too kind. Demasiado amable. You're too kind.
I think Craig might have said that when I gave him the oranges in syrup, which are pretty good, but then they're not a bottle of 15-year-old whiskey, are they? It's not quite the same.
True, but it's not my birthday, so you deserve it because it was your birthday.
I genuinely was extremely pleased to get my present.
So those are expressions you could use on receiving a present you do not like. What about David's other situation where there's noisy, misbehaving children that are disturbing you? Now, I was in this situation about a month a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. I had some visitors here in Valencia. We went for lunch and had some paella near to the house. And there were some really, really noisy children playing right next to the table. And the parents were inside the restaurant. We were outside, and they were not taking care of their children. And the children were disturbing us. They were bothering us. So I don't know if that's happened to you, but what would you say in English in that situation?
I have to be honest and say that I might not say anything at all.
Just suffer it in silence.
Because in this day and age, these days, there are some parents who get very annoyed if you criticize their children. You've got to be careful.
But you're not criticizing the children. You're criticizing the parents' control of the children.
Or even worse, they take it like, what? Are you implying that I'm a bad parent? Which I'm not. All I'm saying is in this particular situation, I want the child to be quieter, but I have a good look at the parents first. And I think, do they look like the sort of people who might get a bit aggressive?
So you want to see how big and tall the father is in case he hits you.
Yeah. Funny that I tend to criticize very kind of sweet-looking, small, kind of slender ladies rather than tall, muscular,
bodybuilders,
tough-looking blokes. Strangely enough, I wonder why that is.
Yeah, probably self-preservation. But one expression you could use if you wanted to say something is "would you mind?" Would you mind? Now, the thing about this expression, you must remember to use a gerund if you put a verb after "would you mind." So, for example, would you mind speaking to your children? Or would you mind asking your children to keep the noise down? To keep the noise down is to have less noise. Keep it down. Would you mind speaking to your children? Now remember, the answer to this will be negative if they don't mind. So would you mind speaking to your children? No, not at all. Or no, of course not. So the reply, if they agree to it, is negative.
By the way, David and all listeners, we wish we could use some of these expressions for noise in the background when you're recording a podcast. Can you hear it? Well, Craig and I are a bit irritated today because neighbours where we're recording have music on very loudly, but there's no way to get them to turn it down. So we are actually being disturbed as we record this podcast.
If there's anybody listening to this podcast who sells recording booths that you install in a flat to make it soundproof, please let us know, because we would love to have a small audio booth in the flat so that you get a better quality podcast. So we apologize if you can hear the noise from our neighbors. I think we should say, would you mind turning the music down?
Yeah, but haven't you tried that before and it didn't really work?
No, didn't work. What other expressions could people use for their kids if they're not paying attention to them?
Yes, another good one is to use the expression keep an eye on someone. So you could say, would you mind keeping an eye on your kids? So to keep an eye means look at them and make sure they're not doing anything they shouldn't be doing. So would you mind keeping an eye on your kids? Or maybe, excuse me, I think your child is disturbing the other customers.
Yeah, because it's possible the parents don't know that their children are misbehaving. In the example I gave before when I was in that restaurant, I think the parents did not know that the children were disturbing us at the table. So just tell them, as Reza said, I think your child is disturbing other customers.
Yes, and do say the other customers, even though what you might really mean is me. It just sounds so much better if you say, excuse me, I think your child is disturbing me. And that might go down well. But if you say that you think they're disturbing other customers, it's like you're almost doing them a favor by pointing this out to avoid any problems.
Instead of would you mind, you could use could. So could you tell your son to stop throwing food, please? Yes. Could you tell your daughter to stop throwing potatoes? One just hit me in the eye.
This might be particularly useful if you've just put on, a very expensive white shirt or dress and they're eating gazpacho or something. This might be a useful one.
Let's move on to another situation, because sometimes you forget people's names. And if you're like me with advancing years and getting older, it's happening more and more that I just forget people's names. What do you say? It can be very embarrassing. Any ideas, Reza?
Well, I'm very cowardly. That means cobarde. I'm very cowardly when it comes to this because I don't like the idea of the person knowing that I don't know their name, especially if they know mine. To me, it make me think like, oh no, they've made an effort to remember me, and it looks like I don't remember them, you know. But in fact, often I do remember them. It's just the name, but I feel really bad about it.
Would you guess their name?
No.
Why not?
Very dangerous.
Why not guess?
Oh, it's better to say nothing than to get it wrong.
Exactly.
I believe.
I agree.
Which is exactly what I usually do. So I see them and I say, oh, nice to see you again. And no name. I don't add a name. Just say something really positive so they don't focus on the fact that you haven't said the name. Nice to see you again.
I agree up to a point, but I like to use people's names quite a lot when I speak to them. So I think at the beginning I would definitely say something like, I'm very sorry, I can't remember your name. And then they tell you, and then you know it, and then you repeat it. And if you repeat someone's name a lot, it sticks. You remember it. So my technique is to be a little bit more direct, to say something, I'm sorry, something like, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name.
So Craig prefers to go for the honest approach. Honesty is the best policy for Craig. Another one you could use, if you want to be honest, is to say, my mind's going blank. Can you remind me what your name is, please? Just say it the way it is. My mind's going blank.
What does it mean when your mind goes blank?
It suggests that normally you would have this information, but for some reason, just at this moment, it's not there. So it's a nice one. It's not like saying, oh, I've no idea who you are. It's like, just, you've caught me at a bad time. Right now, my brain isn't working very well. And unfortunately, you're here. That's why I haven't got your name at this moment. So, oh, my mind's gone blank. Can you remind me what your name is, please?
My mind is usually blank anyway, so it doesn't go blank, it is blank.
I mean, it does happen, and hopefully they believe it. For example, someone might say to you, you know, who was the last president of your country? And you normally know that, but your mind can go blank. You can think, oh, God, you know what? I don't know. It's only a couple of years ago, but my mind's gone blank. It really can happen.
My mind's gone blank.
Craig, another one I like to do is, it's not so much an expression in English, it's just a strategy. I get someone whose name that I definitely know to introduce himself or herself to the person whose name I've forgotten in front of me so I can hear it. And that way I get the name of the person I don't. So let's say I remember Peter's name. Peter's there, right? And there's another man, but I've forgotten his name. So I will say to Peter, I might be honest and say, look, Peter, I can't remember this person's name. Can you go up and introduce yourself?
So you say this before?
I might do if I know Peter well, or I might just kind of position myself so that when Peter introduces himself to this person, I'm there to catch the name.
Okay, so you wouldn't say, for example, if you're introducing two people who you know, but you've forgotten one of their names, you wouldn't say, this is Peter, and wait for the other person to speak and say, No.
This way I get to get the name. So I just kind of bring them up to each other, make sure they're close, and then I let them say, oh, my name's Peter, so that the other one says, oh, my name's David. And then I get that their name's David. And they never knew that I'd forgotten.
And then you say, yeah, I've known David for years. We used to work together. That's a very sneaky approach. Sneaky, S-N-E-A-K-Y, sneaky, very mischievous, very clever approach. Something that often happens to me because I'm very clumsy, C-L-U-M-S-Y. I'm a clumsy person. That means it's easy for me to break things. I'm often breaking glasses or dropping things on the floor. So what can you say if you're a guest in someone's house or you're in a restaurant and you spill some wine or you spill a drink or you break a glass? Reza, what expressions can people use to excuse themselves and apologize?
Well, the first thing is say sorry. So I'm so sorry. And then maybe let me clean that or let me wipe that. So first you apologize and then you offer to get rid of the mess. So, I'm so sorry. Let me clean that. Or let me wipe that.
And clumsy is the adjective. The noun is clumsiness. So N-E-S-S at the end, clumsiness. So you could also say, forgive my clumsiness. Please forgive my clumsiness. I'm so sorry.
Or if you want to kind of make light of the situation, that means make sure nobody gets offended. Like, oh, it's no big deal. You know, you can say, oh, butterfingers, sorry. So a butterfingers is when a person has been clumsy, when they can't seem to control what's in their hands. Imagine there was butter in their hands, so everything slides away. So, oh, butterfingers, you say, sorry.
That's me, Mr. Butterfingers. You could be in a situation where you unexpectedly break wind or burp, B-U-R-P.
What do you mean by those exactly?
Break wind is when wind comes out of your bum. That's a fart, F-A-R-T.
And what's your bum?
Your bum is the back of your body.
Near the top or near the bottom?
It is the bottom.
Oh, it's the bottom.
That's another synonym. So your bum is your bottom. What's the Spanish word?
El culo. Cuando te sale algo por el culo. And you all know what that means.
Yeah, so sometimes you break wind, you fart. Fart is also a verb. But be careful where you use the word fart, because some people might find it offensive. It's not exactly a swear word, but just don't use it around strangers or informal situations.
Break wind is the correct way of saying it, isn't it?
Yes, so break wind is when wind comes out of your bum, or to burp is where you, usually after you eat, and the wind comes out of your mouth, which can also be rude or offensive to some people. So what could you say when you have unexpected wind attacks?
Yes, if you break wind or burp, you could just simply say, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry just on its own is okay, but I would normally put so because, you know, it's embarrassing.
You could also use really. I'm really sorry. Please excuse me. Please excuse me, or please forgive me. It's the Brussels sprouts, for example, or it's the beer.
Just say, you know, it's food, so you could say it's the Brussels sprouts I ate, or the pie I ate is repeating on me.
Repeating?
You know, so give an excuse. Yeah, repeat. If something repeats on you, it means that it's causing you indigestion. Yeah, so give it an explanation, and that might make it seem a bit more excusable.
So you're basically apologizing. You're saying you're sorry. You're asking to be excused. Please excuse me. Or you could say pardon me, which is very common. A little formal, perhaps. Pardon me. Pardon me.
What about this, Craig? Just pretending that nothing happened. Maybe they didn't hear you. Or maybe in a crowded area, they don't know who did it. Would you dare to do that?
Look around accusingly.
Yeah. Or, well, the first option is do nothing at all. Don't look around. Don't say anything. Don't alter your appearance in any way. Have you ever tried that? Just try to be bold and let on you know nothing about it.
Yep. Also, I've tried moving my chair to blame the chair. You could blame the dog. You could blame your grandmother if she's in the room.
Yeah, chairs are good, aren't they? And you hope the sound of the chair moving is similar to the sound of the wind breaking or the burp. If it's a similar sound, they might just buy it.
Yeah.
To buy it means they might believe it.
You might get away with it. To get away with it means that nobody knows it's you. Nobody catches you. You've got away with it. You've got away with it, which is also quite satisfying sometimes.
And if it's a very crowded area, you might notice it, but pretend it wasn't you. So even though it was you, you might say, what was that? So someone's just broken wind or burped, there's been noise. What was that?
Yeah.
And you know full well it was you, and you're just hoping that they'll think it was somebody else.
Of course, the best thing is just to blame Reza.
Yeah.
Reza, really. Control yourself.
Yeah. Or dogs are particularly good to blame because they're not going to fight back, are they?
They're not going to argue.
Yeah. A thing I often say is, Coco, what have you done?
So can you think of any more useful phrases for these situations or other awkward situations that maybe you need English for? We'd love to hear your ideas. So please send us your voice messages. We love to hear your voices. You can do that by going to speakpipe.com. That's speakpipe.com/Craig. Ingles podcast. There's also a but. Why are you laughing?
It's just something just occurred to me. On a bus only a couple of days ago, somebody clearly broke wind. It wasn't me.
Did you hear it or smell it?
Smelt it. And it was just so foul that you could see several people on the bus. It was a very crowded bus. It actually affected the facial expressions, including mine. It was kind of like, oh God, what is that? But nobody actually said anything, but people are kind of and I wonder, is there an expression you could say, because it's impossible to know who did it, but somebody did it. And I was thinking, what kind of scoundrel, what kind of rascal, terrible person who, lets off wind, breaks wind on a crowded bus. That's a terrible thing to do, I think.
It's worse in an aeroplane because you can't open a window and you're sitting there for hours eating aeroplane food, 200 people. It's a fart box. It really is. Disgusting.
So that's why I was laughing. I was just remembering from a couple of days ago.
Reza, where should they send their emails?
Send your emails to craig@inglespodcast.com or belfastreza@gmail.com.
And if you're looking for an online course to improve your listening or other areas of English, go to store.mencioningles.net.
As always, thanks to all of you who are helping us by supporting this podcast on the Patreon scheme. If you're interested, have a look at Patreon. That's Patreon, patreon.com/Inglespodcast. We'd like to thank every single one of our sponsors, but we don't have time. So we'll just mention our latest sponsors. They are Juan Jesus, Vilchez Padilla, and Jose Manuel Flores Gamet. Thank you for joining the Patreon scheme, and a big thanks to all of you who are already on it. Craig, what can you get from the Patreon scheme?
For as little as $1 per month, although we encourage you to give more if you can afford it, you get instant access to transcriptions that we're trying to do as quickly as possible. We do apologize for the delay in some of the more recent ones, but we hope to get them to you as soon as possible. So you get access to every word that Reza and I say on the podcast. And again, patreon.com/Ingles podcast. What's next week, Reza?
On next week's episode, the Argentine, also known as Argentina.
Well, I'm looking forward to that episode. Please join us next week. Thank you for listening this week. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And bye-bye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later, and by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast for your voice messages. What about email? Sorry, what's your name?
I'm what's his face? You could say, what's his name? What's his face?
I think we've met before.